Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Happy Holy Day, Moors. Islam. I was asked by special request to provide a little bit of history. So what I did was I wrote something down so that way I could compartmentalize and compress all my, you know, what it is that I've studied into a brief summary of things. You know what I'm saying? So what follows is just a little summarization of my own, time and energy invested into self-research, where my ancestors come from, and also just seeing how, like, in doing so, how I relate to the families of humanity. All right. So the following information is not for legal advice. It is not for medical advice. It is not for financial advice. If you need that type of advice or that type of assistance, I strongly suggest you seek a specialist in that field. All right. I myself, Prince Jonathan L., am a doctor of Oriental medicine. I'm also a licensed massage therapist, and I'm a special Moorish emissary and ordained minister. So if you need any assistance in any of those areas that I just mentioned, feel free to happily send me an email. I believe there might be a link at the bottom of this video. Send me an email to Moors Temple Light, MOORSTEMPLOLIHT @gmail.com. All right. So yeah, and just leave your name and what you're sending me an email for, and then a contact number so that way I can reach back out to you at the earliest possible time. Okay, or I'll have one of the assistants, the assistant ADEPs also, you know contact you, and we'll consult. And if you feel that any of this information that I'm providing you is of any worth, whether it be a penny for my thoughts, a nickel for, a kiss from my mind to yours, a dime if you tell me that you love me. I don't know. So, okay. Oh, and there's going to be a PayPal link that comes soon. So, here's what I wrote, my little summarization. You wanted black history and the story of the Arawak, Yamasee, and the Pequot after the conquest of Columbus, the American native slave trade that became the African slave trade after the rape of Ethiopia, which was the sub-Saharan slave trade by the Arabs, proving a colonization well before Haile Selassie came along, that led to the interest of the English and Dutch and French slave trades. The African slave trade happened in reverse. Dogons were navigating the seas to the shores of these Americas. Olmecs, Mayans, Incans, all ascending from their bloodline. You are not black, Jamaican, Haitian, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Mexican, or anything else descending a misplaced title. You are Moors, as evidenced in the names of the first slaves brought to Spain by Columbus's mass murder after his pursuit of Moors and Berbers fleeing Roman Catholic Church-led Spain and their Inquisition, and conversion of those same aforementioned beings who practiced Islamism and Hebrewism in the year 1491. Why do you think the Moors of Morocco got involved and established the Morocco-America Treaty of Peace and Friendship to protect the families of Moors already here in the Americas, which was signed by George Washington, 1787? The Corporation of America, established in 1776 and incorporated in 1871, framed in the original and second Constitution, is founded on Islamic principles which it has yet to respect. Message: so many see the sciences applied by Moors as not applicable to the current situations of those wrongfully branded slaves, evident in the identification of 13th and 14th Amendment citizens, explained in plain legal English what their interpretations of blacks in the Americas are, a colorable fiction of their imagination. Those pale-skinned inquisitors still acting as lawmakers and educators of the public, confusing and ingraining into the minds of the masses that they are property, absent capacity to free themselves. Like elephants who are absent chained but still remember the cold feel of steel upon their ankles, they will not forget. They have become too dependent. We have become too dependent on the mass manipulation And in horrific fashion, the majority of us, instead of combating the information and holocaust of history, we commercialize our suffering, sell works of nonfiction based on fiction, all to make $1 to pay for land that belongs to us, leased to them, and subleased back to those who have been naturalized and socialized into a system that solves our problems with more oppression, still with a small window of hope for those that read, with the eyes that see and the ears to hear, by night and by day. Let love, truth, freedom, and justice lead the way. Islam. Alright? And that's my history report. Now, I'm just going to break down a few little parts of my history report so that way you can understand what I'm talking about. All right. Now, in the previous videos that I've put out there, namely in just who are the real white people, I'm going to refer you back to the standard form 181, which you can Google. All right. The standard form 181 is the race and ethnicity identification form, okay? And on that form, it explains in detail what the Corporation of America views as racial categories. And the only one that makes the absolute most sense, if you feel that you are of the one race, the one human race, you, like me, will choose white because it is the best description of me. One of the original peoples of Europe, of Middle East, which is, the Persian Gulf, or the Indian Gulf, and North Africa. Now, if you want to use their science and what they call Pangea, when all the land masses were united together, Africa, being the largest continental landmass, still remained the majority of its structural integrity. All right, whereas Europe lost parts, South America also lost a few parts, but it still shows that, in all honesty, the name of the planet is Africa. Okay, so like if Africa still holds the largest landmass, that's to say, the whole planet was called Africa. Earth is just what you call soil, dirt. You dig? Dirt is not black though. Dirt, soil, is brown. It's dark brown. A rich sham brown. Almost to where it's like purple and brown. It's an interesting color. It's like charcoal. You dig? And where you find charcoal? Hidden in the earth, in the soil, the terrain. Alright? So, all peoples came from the continental landmass of what we consider to be Africa today. Alright? And everybody migrated from out of Africa, right? And then they moved into what became the Middle East, right? Or what we call the Middle East now, and then what moved into Europe. And just in case anyone's like, oh, we don't deal with Europe and Europeans. No, you're talking about Caucasians. Identify them properly. You're talking about Caucasians, who came from a landmass that was rich in Moorish individuals, all right? The Moors of Europe, of Germany, of England, of Spain, of France. Those are your days and your padishahs. You know what I'm saying? 5 tribes. It's simple stuff. But then, move forward. All people come from Africa. Easy. Done. Right? One specific type of people, those Dogons, like I mentioned, they traveled from West Africa over to the eastern shores of South America. And those peoples ascended and became Olmecs, Mayans, Incas, and people of Central and South America. So you're not Cuban, you're not Venezuelan, Brazilian, none of that stuff. You're ancient indigenous beings. You know what I'm saying? It's time to return to the past and retrieve it to help you benefit for the future. Sankofa, an Akan principle. Okay? Akanism is the basis of Hebrewism. All right? And you should look into a book called Akanism and Hebrewism, and that'll show you the relationship between the Akan creation story and the Torah. All right, not to mention one of the oldest strains of DNA in regards to the Y chromosome, has been linked to the Limba tribes in Central and South Africa. All right, so that just shows that like this grand return to your ancestral knowledge of like just where your people came from. And we're not talking about people who just out in the bush naked, you know, eating food off of the trees. I mean, that's a lovely life, but we're talking about ancient societies that had commerce, that had established trade and language well before it was even considered in Europe. That's when it happens in Europe, as those Moors in Africa moved out, and Europe is named after a Moorish princess, Europa. You could look into that. Or you could just watch your Hidden Colors videos and, watch Tariq Nasheed, mention it for you. Which is great insight, great source of information. And if it doesn't inspire you to do some research, you're being entertained, you're not being informed. And that's all that this information is for. The information that preceded has not been for legal, medical, or financial advice. It has been strictly for educational, informational, and mildly entertaining purposes only. So I hope you've been mildly entertained, because I am a poor entertainer, but I am a wealthy man. Okay? So, study. Columbus. Oh, let me just make mention of that. 1491, the expulsion of Moors from the Iberian Peninsula. Like I said, it's the conversion, it's the Spanish Inquisition led by the Roman Catholic Church in the conversion of all peoples. They were on a mission. They were on a mission to civilize the world, place it under one world religion. That way it would be less confusion. And the only reason why the Roman Catholic Church was involved, along with the Bank of England, or the English nobility, was because the true Knights Templars were Moors, and Berbers and Yehudi, because they were banking, they were dealing with the finances. You know what I'm saying? And like, for everyone who's got like this, like it's this free thinkers concept that like, oh, the Illuminati and Knights Templar and all these organizations are so evil. Nah, really, they're not evil. The people might be, that are operating those organizations, that are not supposed to be operating those organizations, may be acting illegally. So they need to be removed out of those lodges, and out of those mosques, and out of those temples, and out of those synagogues, and really check, how they're actually speaking out on, with freedom of speech. You know what I'm saying? So, which would be the way that you would really use the Constitution. I'm giving you a lot in such a short amount of time. But yeah, like you would just use the Bill of Rights to combat the Constitution versus trying to use the whole, you would use the Bill of Rights to combat injustice, or criminal activity committed against you or loved ones, all right? And we're going to go into some videos on how to accomplish such a task, all right? Because there are other alternatives, safer alternatives, better alternatives than the routes that we've chosen previously. So stay tuned. More to come always. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I, self-law, am master Islam. Peace. 2 on the right. 5 on the left. Love. Peace. More simple light at gmail.com. On Facebook too. Reach out. Like. Subscribe. Share. Help a brother out. Get these views up so we can get more time. Peace.